host, Russ Christensen, welcoming you to this segment of the Economy Corner. Today we're going to talk about cartooning. Cartoons, you know, open the newspaper up and there you are, you're looking at the cartoons and maybe getting a laugh and maybe not. But realizing cartooning only is not confined to the, quote, the comic page. But you'll find them on the editorial page, you'll find them scattered throughout advertising, all kinds of newspaper publications, every form and shape. And of course, it takes a great deal of talent and imagination and skill to do this sort of thing, because you must be very current, very up-to-date, very aware, and you must get your point across very rapidly or very quickly, or people won't look at your cartoons anymore. And so on my immediate left here, I have a very prominent, well-known cartoonist around town. His name is Pete Wagner. Pete Wagner has published a few books, one which, of course, is the most well-known, is called Buy This Book, right, Pete?
That's it, Buy This Book.
Buy This Book. And Pete, of course, now, I'm not sure, you're freelancing, you're doing all kinds of things like that. But I'll let you talk about cartooning. What's happening in the field?
Well, first, by way of introduction, I'm working for City Pages, which is the Twin Cities weekly newspaper.
Oh, good. I'm glad I was going to say, what City Pages? That's the spirit. That's it. Open it up.
And what I do there is a weekly editorial cartoon. On the editorial, well, actually, most of the newspaper is kind of editorial. It's a newspaper. Recently won second place in the Minnesota Newspapers Association.
Hey, great. Terrific.
And so it's doing pretty well. And
question is, are they paying you? Let's talk about how great you do. Let's talk about money.
We're getting there.
Okay, all right.
we moved from Lyndale and Lake to Butler Square, so that.
Oh, hey, high-class neighborhood. Let me tell you right there.
So if that's any indication.
I think that's a good indication.
Maybe St. Louis Park by.
Oh, hey, well, don't.
By 87.
Well, you can dream there, and eventually you may aspire to that. Go ahead.
But the kind of thing I do, I guess we might as well point some out right from the start.
Oh, all right, of course.
Our editorial cartoons. An editorial cartoon is different from a gag cartoon. We have some examples here. You might want to close up on those. An editorial cartoon makes a statement about some current news topic.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a chance.
A particular one, I like this particular one because it deals with economics. It's a rather, I think, direct
for openers.
Openers, right?
Relates to the presidential candidates.
Oh, they do like those presidential candidates.
Here's one on Fritz Mondale.
Let's leave it on that one for a little while.
Oh, yeah.
How do you get the ideas for these things?
I read the papers. I watch the news. I've found that it doesn't work too well if you if you study them too much. If I sit down and read the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Star and Tribune every single day and go through every detail, I get too much of an academic kind of point of view. I have to relax and watch the news on TV once in a while, which is where most people get the news anyway. And of course, when doing a cartoon, it has to be done on a topic that people are already pretty familiar with. You can't take time to explain, what this is about.
If you have to explain it, forget it.
It doesn't work.
It's like a joke. If you have to explain the joke, forget it.
Right, and the average reader will only take about 7 to 8 seconds with an editorial cartoon.
That's right.
So let me show you some more here. So here's one of Mondale. This is an all-time favorite. Shows Ronald Reagan, just to show you that I hit both sides. How to make your very own true-to-life Ronald Reagan jack-o'-lantern this Halloween.
Hey, I like that one. That's good.
And, here's the first panel. Number one, find a long pumpkin with a bump on the top. 2, carve as shown. 3, cut pieces for ears. 4, wait about 3 to 4 weeks. And you get a Ronald Reagan jack-o'-lantern. Here's a couple on former Secretary of the Interior.
Oh, I'll bet he was a beautiful target.
Watt. Oh. Yeah, there was a great cartoon in the Trib by Don Wright of the Miami News, who showed from the back, who showed. Let's see, I think I have another one here. I guess I might not have it here. There are a couple others. It showed Watt riding off into the sunset from behind. You know, he was on the
Yeah.
horses, the scene of him riding the horses on his ranch,
Uh-huh.
and there's just a silhouette, and he's with some other guy, and he's saying, I was very touched by the emotion and the response that was shown as I announced my resignation. He said, by the way, who was that group over to the side there that started crying out loud when I announced that I was going to resign? And the other guy says, political cartoonists.
I can understand that one. Yeah, I can relate to that one.
Here's one on the world situation today. It kind of sums up the world situation. You have a map of the world. USSR, USA, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and so on.
That's called satire, right? Come from.
That's maybe 5 years in the future.
Oh, yes.
This was when the first American soldier was killed in El Salvador last year.
I think that's a very biting cartoon. That's one of your, I think, one of your better ones. Really biting.
Nice and simple. Hairstyles, 1981, 1982 on campus, 1983, and 1984.
Oh, my. Oh, my. Are you trying to tell us something here, that we've become very conservative on campus?
I'm always trying to tell people something, but the thing about cartoons that a lot of people don't realize or don't really stop and recognize is that an editorial cartoonist who's any good at all doesn't do this really from a soapbox. You know, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind to agree with me.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to convince anyone of my point of view. That would be unrealistic. So all I'm doing when I do an editorial cartoon is to find a humorous angle and maybe make a point and get people to think about the topic that I'm hitting on, not to convince them to agree with me, but to just get them to think about it. And that's what I don't think most editorial cartoonists who are working for dailies nowadays do very well. There are very, very, very few who really do that. Most are more out for a laugh. They're just just trying to be funny, and that really is not what an editorial cartoon should be. So the state of the art has kind of gone down a bit. In fact, I brought along some examples of what really is the going thing these days, not in so much editorial cartoons, but cartooning in general.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'd like to see that myself.
One of the most popular cartoons right now is this. Let me set this on here. I don't know if you can tilt up enough to see this, but these are by a fellow by the name of, I don't even know his name, Mark Stamety, who does something called the washing tune.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and it's typical of what is really going these days. He has President Reagan here. It is very heavily narrated. There's lots and lots and lots to read.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Like for here's, but now, despite the heady atmosphere of the Oval Office and the unrelenting personal warmth of its occupant, things had changed. I'm sorry, Mr. President, but I think you'll have to bend on the budget. Shows him looking in the dictionary. The president didn't take to this. Well, bend? He's looking up the word bend. You know, this is a guy who works for the Village Voice.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Recently was picked up by the Washington Post. It's the first time in the history of the most editorial daily newspaper in the country. It was just kind of odd, that they would take something
from the Village Voice.
You can see that the drawings. I mean, he says it's intentional, and I'm sure to a great extent it is. But the drawings aren't really like editorial cartoons. They're very sketchy and very childlike.
Right.
And
I would notice that in the comic pages also this is a trend too, to draw very simple cartoons.
And funny, I think I've been trying to kind of figure it out. I've seen other cartoons. There's this woman by the name of Linda Berry, who's very popular now in the alternative newspapers. And some of the things she does are they're downright funny. They're hysterically funny, but they're very, very verbal again. Lots and lots and lots and lots of writing.
What
And the
is
drawing
why?
style is very sketchy. It's very
Why have we gone away from the
primitive.
very sharp lines and saying through the picture? Now we're going to a lot of wordy bit.
Well, I think it has to do with a general trend among people to want to feel that they can participate. And, you know, the source of all these.
I remember buy this book.
Okay.
You never did anything like that. You weren't very wordy at any time. You had very minimal number of words.
I did just the opposite.
Yeah.
But I think what's happening is, I think it's being influenced by a couple things. One is the punk movement, the new wave movement, which this is a good example, a guy with French fries sticking out of his nose. Among young people, you know, in their teens, or it's kind of a rebellion thing.
I see, okay.
And a big part of the punk thing is to do it yourself. To be able to draw cartoons, if you want to draw cartoons, whether you know how to hold a pen or not, according to the traditional, you know, idea.
Right.
I'm not putting it down.
I understand what you're saying.
It's an alternative,
Yeah.
and maybe it's time that there was kind of a change in this, you know,
Right.
for the most part. But that's part of it. People want to identify with the thing. They want to feel that they could do it themselves. They like that idea.
Right, of course.
You know?
They want to feel superior to, at least equal to the artist, if not superior to the artist.
Right.
Okay.
Which is a big change.
Right.
It used to be that people were more impressed by a really sharp kind of draftsmanship and this kind of thing. Another thing is, I think that it's the TV generation, the TV effect. You know, the generational thing of kids who grew up on TV and who saw a lot of comedians. And so their idea of humor is much more verbal. It's more like somebody who stands there and talks about something funny rather than shows them something funny.
In a stand-up comedian like Johnny Carson and so forth, you mean that kind of thing?
Right, or maybe you could think of someone a little funnier.
Oh, right, I know. I was
but
thinking,
you know, the real interesting thing, there's a cartoonist, I'm not sure if it's the same person who did the books, the author, but I'm pretty sure it is, Bill Plimpton.
Oh, yes, I've heard of him.
You know, who's very well known for going into situations and pretending he's one of the people.
One of the boys, like,
in there, like when he went into the football team
thing, right.
and played football. And it's like, you know, they want to show that anybody can do this. And if Bill Plimpton is one of the more popular cartoonists these days, that's like the epitome. Or even if it's only a coincidence that
I didn't know
name.
Bill Plimpton was such a you know, talented cartoonist. I really did not know that.
Well, the drawings aren't that good again, but they're okay. You know, he gets his message across, and historically, a cartoon, the idea has always been the more important thing.
Right.
But it's kind of sad, I think, in a way that this kind of thing seems to be pushing out some of the cartoonists like myself, who are, you know, I still think there's a place, and I kind of wish there was a bit higher level of appreciation of the kind of thing that I do.
Yeah, right.
Because it seems that you know, there is still a great appreciation of it, but it's really not where it should be. You know, it's kind of a failure to understand the medium in some ways, or to accept different forms of it.
But yeah, may I add a little note of sunshine? Don't you think these are sort of cycles?
Yeah.
This will come and go. I mean, you know, we'll have this sort of, you know, Grandma Moses approach, you know, with very simple lines, and then we'll go on to something else.
Yeah,
I wish I would like to tell you that I don't think it's going to last. Maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and it'll be all over the hill, then something else will come along.
Right, that's what happens. But anyway, that is the current trend. That does seem to be the way it's going.
I've always wondered about something. Why aren't more cartoonists drawing in color? Why is it always black and white?
Well, just because most publications print in black and white, it would be way too expensive to, you know, go to multicolored just for the cartoon.
I see.
It's,
okay.
it's you know, even for a small newspaper, it's hundreds of dollars just to add one color to a page for a moderate circulation paper.
Yeah, that's too much money. I can't afford that.
Yeah, it adds up.
I was just wondering why there weren't more color cartoons. I was just wondering about that. Bring a point across or something of that order with the color.
Jacob Burke of the Chicago Sun-Times, who won his Pulitzer in, I think, 1933. He died a couple years ago, but I visited him when I was first getting into the business, and he was starting to use spot color I don't know. I suppose if you're at the Chicago Sun-Times and you won your Pulitzer in 1933, you rank. You know. Should we flash through a couple more of these?
Okay.
And,
all right.
And I'll do a couple of sketches for you. Here's one that I did after the Greyhound strike.
Oh yes.
Taking off on the logo.
Okay.
And leave the profits to us.
I thought that's excellent.
They had this blown up. They had a huge blow up of it at the meeting the union had the following week. There was a big meeting in St. Paul, and I remember calling and asking if they had, if they thought there might be an interest in a T-shirt of a cartoon. And I said I did a cartoon on the strike, and everybody I talked to said, "Oh, the one with the pig?"
Hey!
So I guess they get around. Here's another one on Jimmy Watt.
Oh yeah, the cartoonist cried off in the corner because boy.
The thing about the Beach Boys, the remark he made that the Beach Boys were hard rock. I just showed the Beach Boys soft rock, hard rock. And Walter Mondale.
I do remember Fritz having his operation.
His operation. A news item: Mondale denies nose job was for cosmetic purposes. You know, I have him as Rudolph with Tip O'Neill as Santa.